wife passed away 5 years ago, and ever since then, time has felt heavier, like it drags its feet just to remind me she's gone. Every single month, without fail, I sent $200 to her parents. That was the agreement. A debt she had taken on before she died, one I promised to finish paying in her place. I never missed a month, not once. Then one afternoon, the woman who lives in the apartment below mine stopped me in the hallway. She looked nervous, kept glancing around before she spoke. She said, "Old man, you need to stop sending them money, and you need to look at the security camera footage." The way she said it made my stomach tighten. The next day, I did exactly that. Before that, though, I went through my usual routine. I drove my old, rust-speckled sedan across town, the engine rattling like it might give up any day now. When I parked in front of the building, the smell hit me right away. Peeling plaster, damp brick, old drains that hadn't been cleaned in decades. That building had been standing in the heart of Chicago for more than 70 years, and it felt like it was slowly rotting along with the people trapped inside it. I parked where I always did, near the corner, over a faded red paint mark that had been my car's spot for the last 5 years. Same place, same day, the 5th of the month. Payment day. My name is Arthur. I'm 68 years old, a widower, and that envelope in my coat pocket held $200. It felt heavier than it should have. For some folks, $200 is nothing. For me, it was groceries, medication, bus fare, a little cushion in case my heart acted up again. My wife, Eleanor, had borrowed $12,000 from her parents years ago so we could try to start fresh. She wanted a better life for us, a better place. Then she died suddenly, and all that hope turned into an obligation that landed squarely on my shoulders. Her mother blamed me. Said if it weren't for me, Eleanor wouldn't have taken the loan, wouldn't have stressed herself out, wouldn't have died so young. She pointed her finger at my chest at the funeral. I still remember it, shaking. She demanded I pay back every cent, $200 a month, 5 years. I agreed, not because I wanted to, but because I loved my wife and I needed peace. 5 floors, no elevator. I adjusted my coat and started climbing. Each step echoed in that narrow stairwell. The light barely made it through the grimy windows. My knees complained with every rise. First floor, a radio blared some old soul song, distorted and too loud. Second floor, burnt food smell drifting from a shared kitchen. Third floor, a couple shouting about bills. Fourth floor, almost silent. And then the 5th floor. That hallway always felt wrong, too quiet, too still. I stopped outside apartment 504 and wiped the sweat from my forehead. My chest felt tight, not just from the climb. That iron door, painted a cheerful blue, never felt welcoming. I knocked, 3 sharp knocks. Nothing. I knew they were home. They were always home. Eleanor's father, Harold, had arthritis so bad he barely went outside. Her mother, Ruth, complained of headaches and dizziness, but somehow never missed a payment day. They lived behind locked doors and closed blinds, like they were hiding from the world. I knocked again, louder. "It's Arthur," I called. "I brought this month's money." Almost a full minute passed before I heard slippers dragging across the floor. Then the deadbolt slid back with a dry, cracking sound. The door opened just enough for Ruth's face to appear. She looked older than her years, sunken eyes, skin pulled tight with suspicion. The chain stayed on. "You're late," she said flatly. "I came as soon as I could," I replied, forcing calm into my voice. I pulled out the envelope and handed it through the gap. $200, just like always. She snatched it without counting, without even looking at me, and shoved it into her pocket. "How are you holding up?" she asked, her eyes already drifting past me down the stairs. "I'm managing," I said. I was thinking, the debt's almost paid off. Maybe we could talk, maybe spend some time together. Eleanor would have wanted that. Her face hardened instantly. "That's your business," she said. "We don't need visitors." The door slammed shut before I could say another word. The deadbolt clicked into place. I stood there, staring at that blue door. No invitation, no kindness, not even a glass of water. I pressed my ear against the metal, hoping to hear a TV, a cough, anything that proved life existed behind it. Nothing, just silence, thick and suffocating. I turned and started down the stairs, my heart heavier than my legs. I whispered my wife's name under my breath and asked her why she'd left me with this, why her parents still treated me like a stranger. I didn't know that as I walked away, someone was watching me from behind a cracked blind. And that look wasn't the soft gaze of an elderly man. It was sharp, alert, calculating. When I reached the courtyard, the air felt lighter. Kids were laughing. A basketball bounced against concrete. Women chatted on benches like the world was still normal. That's when a firm hand grabbed my wrist. "Arthur," a voice said softly. "Is that you?" It was Miss Lorraine. She'd lived there longer than anyone. Used to run the tenant meetings, sharp eyes, sharp mind. She pulled me down onto the bench beside her and leaned close. "Did you go up there again today?" I nodded. She shook her head slowly. "Next month, don't send them a dime." "What are you talking about?" I asked. "I only have a little left to pay." Her grip tightened. Her eyes widened. "Some folks around here say the dead aren't always as gone as we think," she whispered. "And I ain't talking about ghosts. I'm talking about people, real ones." A cold ran through me. She leaned closer. "That apartment's quiet all day, but late at night, footsteps, shadows. And once I saw a man going up those stairs, walked just like someone I used to know." My heart skipped, and he looked an awful lot like someone who's supposed to be dead. My heart started pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. That limp she described, the slight drop of the shoulder, I had seen it 1,000 times before. Eleanor used to tease me about it after I hurt my hip slipping on black ice years ago. I never fully recovered, and now someone was telling me they had seen that same walk on the 5th floor. "And there's more," Miss Lorraine whispered. "Every time you bring that money up there that same night, or the next one, that shadow shows up." I couldn't move. My thoughts went blank, like someone had wiped my mind clean. Eleanor died 5 years ago. There was a hospital report, a funeral, an urn with ashes sitting on my shelf. None of this made sense. "You must be mistaken," I said, trying to sound calm, trying to convince myself more than her. "Your eyes aren't what they used to be." She looked offended, deeply offended. "I'm old," she said slowly. "But I ain't blind and I ain't crazy. I saw him clear as day. Baseball cap pulled low, face mask on. And listen to this. He didn't sneak around like a thief. He pulled out a key, opened that door like it was his own place." That sentence landed like a punch to my chest. "If you don't believe me, that's on you," she added. "But do yourself a favor and check." She told me about a security camera the building had installed on the landing between the 4th and 5th floor. Management said it was for robberies. She leaned back like she'd said enough and started fanning herself again, conversation over. I walked to my car like I was underwater. My legs felt weak. My hands shook so badly I almost dropped my keys. Not that dead, walks with a limp, opened the door with a key. I sat there gripping the steering wheel, staring straight ahead, If Eleanor was alive, where had she been all this time? Why had she let me bleed money month after month? Why let me grow old alone? Traffic roared around me, horns blaring, people yelling, but I felt completely disconnected from the world. My mind replayed the last 5 years on a loop. Every visit to her parents, Ruth's cold eyes, Harold's silence, their obsession with that $200, never late, never optional. They claimed it was their retirement money. But between their Social Security checks and their cheap rent, they weren't starving. So where was that cash really going? I remembered one summer afternoon, the heat unbearable. I had brought them fruit. When Ruth cracked the door open, I noticed every blind inside was shut tight. No windows open, no fan running. 2 elderly people sitting in a sealed apartment during a heat wave, unless they were hiding someone. A sharp voice snapped me back to reality. "Grandpa, you okay?" It was my grandson, Leo, climbing into the car after school. I forced a smile and nodded. "Just tired," I said. That night, after dinner, after everyone went to bed, I sat alone at the kitchen table. I opened my old notebook, the one where I tracked every dollar. There it was, circled in red. Debt, $12,000. I had paid for 58 months, 2 left. If Eleanor was alive, then I wasn't paying a debt. I was being robbed. I stared at the numbers until they blurred. Then I picked up my phone and called my nephew, Caleb. Smart kid. Worked in IT, knew his way around systems. "Uncle Arthur," he answered. "Everything okay?" "I need a favor," I said. "Something quiet, something important." I asked about the security cameras, about footage. There was a pause on the line. "I know someone," he finally said. "Why?" "I think I lost something," I replied. "On the stairs." The next afternoon, we met at a small coffee shop tucked away from the main road. Caleb opened his laptop without a word. "You don't look good," he said. "What's going on?" "Just show me," I replied. We pulled up the footage, black and white, grainy. The timestamp read 1:45 a.m. At first, the hallway was empty. Then a figure appeared. My breath caught in my throat. He wore a loose jacket, a cap, a mask. He climbed the stairs slowly. Right foot first, then the left dragged just a little. His shoulder dipped as he shifted his weight. That walk. I knew it better than my own reflection. He reached apartment 504. Didn't hesitate, didn't knock. He pulled out a key and slipped inside. I felt sick. We checked another month. Same thing. Another. Same man. Same time. Always after payment day. I leaned back in my chair, dizzy. 5 years. 5 years I had been paying for a lie, supporting a ghost who was very much alive. "Copy everything," I said quietly, "and don't tell anyone." When I got home, I locked my bedroom door and sat on the floor, watching the footage play again and again. I recognized the jacket. I had bought it for Eleanor myself. My grief began to shift. It hardened, turned sharp. They hadn't just taken my money. They had taken my mourning, my healing, my dignity. I looked at her photo on the dresser, that warm smile, that familiar face. "You played dead well," I whispered. "Now it's my turn to play along." I opened a fresh notebook and started writing. Slowly, carefully. Tomorrow, I would start looking for the truth. And I would hunt my dead wife. I needed to know where the money was really going. I told Caleb to see if there were any strange movements in my in-laws' bank accounts. He warned me it wouldn't be easy because of privacy laws, but he said he could try to look indirectly. I put the phone down and realized I couldn't just sit and wait. I had to get closer. I had to see things with my own eyes. A thought kept gnawing at me. If Eleanor was coming back to that apartment after I delivered the money. Was she just picking it up, or was she living there? That afternoon, I left work early and drove to the building. I parked and sat on a bench in the courtyard, pretending to rest my legs. "Well, look who it is, Arthur," a sharp voice called out. It was Mrs. Collins from the 4th floor. She lowered herself onto the bench beside me and smiled in that curious way people do when they're about to share something. "You're a good man," she said, "paying your wife's debt all these years. But tell me, are your in-laws doing all right lately?" I shrugged. "As far as I know." She leaned closer. "That's funny, because every night I hear a terrible ruckus upstairs." My pulse jumped. "Ruckus?" "Heavy footsteps," she said, "like a young person pacing back and forth, and toilets flushing at 2 or 3 in the morning." I swallowed and forced a laugh. "Must be Harold. His leg gives him trouble." She snorted. "Pain in the leg, my foot, and there's more. Those two always claimed they were broke, but lately I see your mother-in-law hauling out huge black trash bags every night. Once I peeked, pizza boxes, beer cans." My hands went cold. Pizza and beer had always been Eleanor's favorites. And when I asked her, Mrs. Collins continued, she said they were offerings for the dead. What kind of offering fills a whole trash bag? That was all I needed to hear. Eleanor wasn't just stopping by. She was living there, spending my money, comfortably. 2 nights later, I decided to test them. I bought an expensive foot massager and went up at 8 in the evening. I climbed the stairs slowly, holding the box like a peace offering. Before I knocked, I paused and listened. Inside, the television was on. Voices, clear voices. "Eat, honey," Ruth said. "Eat while it's hot. Your husband just brought this month's money. Spend it." A man laughed. "Relax, Ma. I've got it under control. When the payments end, I'll disappear for a while. That old fool believed everything." That voice froze my blood. It was Eleanor's voice. My hands shook, but I knocked anyway. Silence fell instantly. "Who is it?" Harold called. "It's Arthur," I said. "I brought something for your arthritis." The door opened just a crack. Harold blocked the entrance with his body. "At this hour?" he muttered. "I saw this machine and thought of you," I said, "and I wanted to light a candle for Eleanor." His face drained of color. "Nonsense," he snapped. "Go home." Just then, a cough echoed from the back room. A man's cough, deep and dry. Harold slammed the door shut. The next morning, Caleb called me. "They haven't touched their pension money in years," he said. "Only deposits. Tens of thousands saved." "So how do they live?" I asked. "Cash," he replied. "Someone brings it to them, and that someone doesn't want a digital trail." I didn't need him to finish the sentence. I started digging deeper. I called the man who had delivered Eleanor's ashes years ago. He stuttered, dodged my questions, said records no longer existed. Every answer felt rehearsed. That's when I knew what I had to do. That weekend, I drove to the small town in Indiana where Eleanor's family plot was. The urn was there, supposedly. I arrived under a harsh yellow sun. Relatives greeted me warmly. They spoke of Eleanor like she was truly gone. I nodded and smiled and kept my mouth shut. At the cemetery, I waited until everyone was gone. I stood in front of the niche and took a deep breath. My hands trembled as I unlocked the glass door. I set up a small camera and recorded everything. The urn sat there, heavy and cold. I pried the seal open carefully. Crack. The lid gave way. Inside there were no ashes, just sand, gravel, a lie sealed in ceramic. I sank to my knees. 5 years of grief, 5 years of payments, all built on emptiness. I closed the urn, wiped my hands, and stood slowly. Eleanor wasn't dead. And now, neither was my patience. A small piece of dried sealant snapped loose. I froze, then kept prying. My hands were shaking, my mouth dry. After a few long minutes, the lid finally gave way with a dull pop. I held my breath and looked inside. It was empty. Not completely empty. At the bottom lay a thin layer of dust and several rough construction stones, each about the size of a child's fist. No ashes, no bone fragments, nothing that even remotely resembled the remains of a cremated human being. My legs gave out. I dropped to my knees, staring at those lifeless stones. Even though I had prepared myself for this moment, seeing it with my own eyes broke something deep inside me. For 5 years, we had been mourning a lie. For 5 years, prayers had been whispered to rubble. It was cruelty dressed up as grief. I forced myself to breathe and lifted the small camera, recording every angle, every stone, every grain of dust. My voice trembled, but I spoke clearly. Today, I opened the urn of my wife, Eleanor Price, in her hometown cemetery. There are no ashes inside, only stones. This is proof that her death was staged. When I finished, I carefully placed everything back exactly as it was. I sealed the urn again, locked the niche, and stepped away. From the outside, nothing looked different. Inside me, everything had changed. My grandson shouted happily a few yards away, waving a grasshopper. I wiped my face, forced a smile, and took his hand. We left the cemetery as if nothing had happened, leaving behind a false grave that wouldn't stay hidden much longer. That night, in a roadside motel while the boy slept, I searched through old social media accounts. I remembered Eleanor's closest friend, a man named Rick, the one who cried the loudest at the funeral and then vanished. His profile was filled with bar photos and motorcycles. In one picture, he raised a beer mug, and on his wrist was a watch with a blue face and a metal band. My heart skipped. I had given Eleanor that watch myself. Our anniversary gift. There was a deep scratch near the clasp from a fall years ago. The same scratch was visible in the photo. The lie unraveled quickly after that. Caleb traced locations, late nights, an abandoned warehouse across the state line. Supplies delivered regularly, a place perfect for hiding. The following night, we went there. Hidden in the dark, we watched as Rick arrived on his motorcycle. He knocked, the door opened, and out stepped Eleanor, alive, thin, changed, but unmistakably her. I bit my lip until I tasted blood. We recorded everything. Her voice, her laughter, her confession, how she faked her death to escape debts, how her parents played poor while draining my life one payment at a time. How she mocked me for believing that was enough. The next day, the evidence went to a lawyer, then to the police. That night, arrests were made. Warehouse, apartment, accomplices. I sat alone at the station, exhausted, hollow, relieved. Months later, the trial ended. Eleanor was sentenced to prison for fraud and forgery. Her parents were forced to return every dollar. Rick went down with them. When I walked out of the courthouse, the sky looked bluer than it had in years. I sold the old apartment, bought a small place filled with light. Life didn't magically become perfect, but it became honest. One afternoon, my grandson ran up to me, proud of a good grade at school. I laughed and promised him fried chicken to celebrate. We walked together under the trees, the wind soft against my face. The lie was over, and for the first time in 5 years, I was free.